The story from Miami last season, and in so many seasons over the years, has been not being able to finish big games in big moments. Here's how you get over the can't get right itis.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
By the way, that term "can't get right itis" is coined by my co-host on Locked On ACC, Kenton Gibbs. You know, whether it be blowing a 21-point lead against Syracuse last year, not taking the knee against Georgia Tech the year before, it's all can't get right itis. By the way, I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I just got back from ACC kickoff media days, and something else that happened there was our former offensive coordinator, Rhett Lashley, actually stood up for Miami and the college football playoff last year. We will discuss on this episode why Carson Beck is the right fit and the right leader for Miami, but I want to talk about the keys to finishing games and finishing seasons. And folks, I know we didn't have our normal Truth Teller Tuesday, so we're doing it on a Thursday. The Truth Teller, Bruce Warner, is with us. And so, all right, Bruce, Miami, as we've talked about, loses 3 out of their final 4 games down the stretch last year. They blow the 21-point lead against Syracuse. In your mind, what does it take to get over the hump and finish games and finish seasons?
Changes, coaching staff, players, and schemes and an attitude. And you talked to Mario. I watched all your interviews yesterday on YouTube, so I saw what he said and all the players said. They have to have a mindset. I know Mario made something about not only the defense but the fumbles at the end of some of these games that they lost. That's got to stop too, putting the ball on the floor. But I look, we've talked about this. I don't know what's going to happen with our defense. There's so many new players. Can they really gel? And can they gel against Notre Dame, the first game of the year? I don't know. But I like Heatherman. I like the staff. I like the new scheme. I like the aggressiveness. I don't like the way they played last year at all. So I'm going to partially throw a lot of that out and hope that the D tackles that they have now will do better. I think Bain and Messidor are going to be really tough to stop. They got new linebackers to go with Saint, and they have a whole ton of new guys in the secondary. So, yeah, I know you spoke to Mario about the communication. So important. But I trust Heatherman. I just do. And even though we haven't seen any of these guys play 1 second together, I think the Notre Dame game, as I've said for the last month or two, is the springboard for the whole season. They can't lose that game because I don't care what Mario told everybody this week up there. He's going to catch hell if they lose that game. And I don't see how it could be any different, whether it's his fault or not. They've got to beat Notre Dame.
Yeah. Well, and even like, 1,000%. But still, I think part of the mental toughness that you need is because they started 9-0 last year, Bruce.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened after that, but it's like you could beat Notre Dame week 1. You could beat Florida week 4. You start your season 4-0. You could feel like you're on top of the world. But I think what Mario needs to emphasize, and what he is emphasizing, because he talked about it on Tuesday, is having the mental toughness and consistency and dedication to football to finishing the job. I think that's a big part of it. Now, obviously, the first part of it is if you collect as much talent as possible, and if you have, bigger guys, bully little guys, is why Miami has built up their lines of scrimmage. I mean, you can raise your floor, and you're going to be in every single game if you're winning battles at the line of scrimmage. So obviously football is about talent. It's about collecting the most talent possible, but then you also need the mental toughness and the dedication to not be making these stupid mistakes at the ends of seasons and the ends of games. And I like, Bruce, how you also brought up coaching in the scheme. Because it's become very clear to me, conversation that I had with Cristobal on Tuesday, and also watching some of the other interviews he did from Charlotte and being in the press conference that he did, where he has, said it with trying not to throw Lance Guidry completely under the bus, but Miami just didn't have enough answers schematically, that once they got figured out, they didn't have plans B and C, that they lost their way because over time enough film was out on Miami's defense. They were figuring it. Now, a big part of that is talent. I'm not going to act as if Guidry had like a perfect chessboard full of talent. You look at all the players Miami brought in, but if you get figured out schematically, you have to have someone who has answers, right? Because when they counter your punches, you have to be able to adjust and counter back, Bruce, and they weren't able to do that.
Yeah, well, that 9-0 was somewhat of a 9 with an asterisk, a few asterisks. The asterisks against Cal. Wow, we could have lost that game. We could have lost the Virginia Tech game. We were, it was tough. A lot of those games were nail biters to the end. So yeah, it was 9-0. But when you go through the season and you're in the middle, and that's how your defense is playing. I mean, you just said something about the players. Well, you know what? The scheme was bad. Even when they beat Florida, the scheme was bad that after that week for the rest of the season. So Mario's the head coach. Hey, what are we doing out there? What's going? Why is there no pass rush? Why is the coverage so bad? Well, now they got Heatherman in there, and they've simplified the defense. Everybody knows where they're going. It's going right up the field. When a ball gets snapped, none of this stunting and all the other nonsense. And I think the defense will be better. I don't know how much, because the reliance on Justin Scott is big. You said you spoke to somebody about Justin.
Akeem Mesidor told me that Justin Scott is doing really well.
Right. And so you got Moten and you got Blay, and I don't know who else is in that mix, but there's a lot of guys behind Bain and Mesidor too that will play a lot this year. But as long as they don't have to constantly think where they're going, what am I doing? If they have their assignment is go get them. I expect us to be better. I just do. Now, if we beat Notre Dame, I don't know. Because I saw Piquel just now on YouTube saying he didn't think they're that good.
Notre Dame?
He thinks they need they're like they have to overachieve to be good this year. They have certain good aspects of their team, but they're not that great. I mean, they got destroyed by Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of teams would though. But going back, I want to bring up, so when we talk about the whole can't get right itis thing, getting over the hump, whatever you want to call it. And you guys, hopefully, and if you haven't already, check it out from our Tuesday episode, had a conversation, exclusive one-on-one with Mario Cristobal, which was awesome. We had a one-on-one with Carson Beck, which was a thrill, Francis Maui-Noah. But I wanted to play something from Cristobal at the podium during his press conference. Like, here's Mario talking about the trajectory that Miami's on from the last 3 seasons and sort of what it's going to take to get over the hump, Bruce, because like 10 wins was nice, but Miami didn't really win anything last year. Here's Cristobal.
Year one, our roster was not really built to take on Power 4 football, and those were some lopsided games. It was tough. And then in year two, every game was competitive, and we won a couple more. And then last year, we had a chance to win every single game, but we didn't. The bottom line is we didn't get it done. And it's more than, I know we pointed out the defense a little bit earlier, but you know what also fell apart at the end? Ball security. Right? If you turn the ball over, you subject yourself to some not so positive outcomes. So without a doubt, finishing is a mentality. Finishing is a work ethic that comes with the offseason. And we've always, invested a ton of effort in those areas, and we've invested even more this offseason. And it'll be a big part of training camp as well.
Because Bruce, in my opinion, ball security, I believe, is a direct symptom of hard work and focus. That the more you rep it, the less likely you are to fumble it, to drop it, to throw an interception.
Yeah, well, he's talked about finishing. What about taking a knee against Georgia Tech? So this is not always on the players.
That was 2 years ago. I think he learned from that, I believe.
Let's hope he learned from that. Because what I just said to you, I'm not trying to be negative to him, but last year the defense was bad right after the first week for the most part. And they never really fixed it. Now he's the head coach. I never remember Jimmy getting involved with not fixing something or whatever back in the day. You got to make the adjustments. If the defensive coordinator is playing a scheme you don't like, hey, I don't like this. Now, can you change in the middle? I don't know. Maybe you couldn't teach that. I don't know. That's why I'm thrilled about Heatherman. His defense last year at Minnesota was awesome. And the yards per game they gave up, was it like 280 or something, like 290? Ridiculously low. So I think he figured it out. They brought in some new talent to go with the guys they have. Yeah, I'm expecting the defense to be very good this year.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about it because I got some messages from you guys on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat on how you feel Miami can improve in finishing games and getting over the hump. Plus, I want to talk a little bit about Carson Beck because I had a chance to meet him for the first time, had a long chat with him on the air, had a little chat with him off the air as well. And I'm excited. Like I continue to feel better about what he brings to the table. You want to keep it locked right here. We got the Truth Teller with us on a Truth Teller Tuesday on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Guys, I have been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. I love the player props. I love the parlays. I love the odds that I'm getting on FanDuel day in and day out. And by the way, the site is easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. I was out there for a couple of days in Charlotte. Kenton Gibbs is still out there. I tapped out after like a day and a half. Kenton Gibbs is still out there. JJ Jackson from Locked On Blue Devils has also been helping us out. Locked On ACC, we've been covering everything the commissioner's been saying. We put a spotlight on Florida State. In yesterday's episode, Mike Norvell is yelling and screaming at the podium. I don't know what's going on there. Make sure you make Locked On ACC your next listen. Available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So I thought this was, Bruce, a detailed message that came in from David and Vero, who's one of our Locked On Canes insiders. You know, I asked our insiders chat sort of why you guys think Miami has had trouble finishing games and getting over the hump. He says, I think the Georgia Tech game can be explained in three areas. First, we ran into a good and tough team. Their game versus UGA, you remember 8 overtimes, shows just how good they were. Second, our defense could not get off the field on third down, but our defense was what our defense was. Third, if our offense and Cam Ward had an underperforming game last year, it was against Tech. Our offense had issues versus Tech, did not carry us to victory, and they really should not have against a one-armed Tech quarterback. He says the Syracuse game is different but similar. That may have been our defense's worst game. They could not get off the field on third down to save themselves. And frankly, Ward and our offense did not look great in the game after halftime. He's right. So it comes down to the same scenario. Ward and the offense couldn't carry us to victory, so we lost. I don't like bringing up the Restrepo fumble because he deserves better from us. And we don't know if our offense would have continued to drive down the field and scored after his fumble. We could not count on our D to carry us to victory, and we needed them in both of those games. So I thought he summed it up really well.
Can't disagree with anything he said. We just can't.
Yeah.
And that was very poignant, and all the things he brought out. I believe it. I do want to go back to the Notre Dame just for 1 second. What do we know about that game? We know that place is going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. There's going to be a lot of drunk people there. It's a night game. It's a home game. So we know that. And if we can come out on fire and get the crowd into it with a young quarterback, yeah, I think we're in good shape. We can't let this kid get into the game and let him feel like he could run and do whatever he wants. We've got to pressure this kid. We got to bring him down. We got to smack him after he gets rid of the ball. We got to play old-time Miami football because we've beaten Notre Dame like that in the past. So I'm excited about it, but I'm a little nervous because you know that if they don't win that game, me and all the listeners, they're going to go wild. And they're going to, you know who they're going to point the finger at. Unless Beck throws 6 interceptions. But still, I don't expect any of that stuff. I expect us to win that. I said it 2 months ago. I still think we're going to beat them. But all right, let's go. What do you want to talk about? Carson Beck?
Well, hold on. Let me add something on the Notre Dame game. You probably noticed this if you watch my interview with Mario. Like I tried to give Mario an opportunity to talk about it.
He wouldn't bite.
He wouldn't bite. Like he's not in Notre Dame mode. He's like maybe 10, 12 days before the game. We can start talking about it, which listen, I respect it. And it was the same thing. Like, Carson Beck, Akeem Mesidor, Wesley Basaint, CC, like all the players who were there representing Miami, they're not talking about specific games yet, not even the opener. And I really appreciate Miami's approach because Thomas Castellanos, the new quarterback for Florida State, this guy a month ago, he's already yapping. Alabama's a shell of their former, so they don't have Saban to save them. It's like, dude, like it really makes me appreciate Mario Cristobal because believe me, every one of his players all down the roster know we're not ready to talk about any specific game. Yet apparently Mike Norvell can't get the message to his players not to trash talk the Alabama freaking Crimson Tide 2 months before the game.
Well, how do you know he's not telling them the same nonsense in the locker room? He might be.
Maybe, and they're not listening.
He's full of crap most of the time anyhow. So I hope Alabama, I hate Alabama, but I hope they beat their brains in. I really do. I don't root for Alabama against most teams, but I would root for them against Florida State. All right, so Beck, I'm not worried about him being healthy at all. Not in the least. He's fine. So, yeah, what do I worry about? The receivers, which is a broken record already with me. Until they're proven, they're unproven. And we don't know what any of these kids are going to do. Yet, you just sat there and told me the leading receiver in the history of our program fumbled the ball in crunch time against who? Syracuse. And we lost. So anything can happen. But I trust Beck. I think he's a smart guy. I trust Kevin Beard, and I think they'll be ready for Notre Dame. I don't think maybe there'll be some nerves at the beginning, but not after that. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet Beck for the first time on Tuesday, and he passed my eye test in terms of the way he carries himself. Right?
Why? Because he dressed nice.
Well, he had that chain with like the diamonds on the bling. The bling was shining, but not even just that.
I'm just kidding.
It's very clear he loves football. He's really immersed himself in Miami's playbook. And I asked him, of course, about his health and about his workouts the last couple of months. And he's been putting in a ton of work with his receivers. And it's like, obviously, Beck he's going to say the right things, but I also talked about him with CeCe Mauinoa, who is like, he's really sold. And like CeCe went out of his way to tell me both on and off the air that, Beck is a leader the way that Cam Ward was a leader. Now, that doesn't mean they carry themselves the same way because Ward is a little bit more kind of vocal and in your face. But when it comes to the attitude and the control that they take over their offense, like CeCe basically said, we have another one of those alphas, is what he said about Carson Beck. And I want to play a clip here from my conversation with Beck because I think the other thing that's so valuable, Bruce, is him coming from Georgia, where he was 5 years in that he started for 2.5 years.
I saw your face when you said 5 years.
I was like, well, it made me feel old. Like you've been in college, you're going into your 6th year. What is this? So here is Beck telling me about his experience in Georgia and how he can translate that to Miami.
Being at Georgia for 5 years.
That many years, huh?
5 years.
Time flies, man.
It does fly. But I mean, obviously the culture and what Coach Smart has built at Georgia is one of its own. And I'm super thankful to have been a part of that, right? And learn from a guy like him. I wouldn't be the player that I am without him being a coach of me, right? And in more ways than just football, but also just being a man and in life and all those things and learning life lessons through all the years that I was there, right? But, now being in Miami, being able to take, what I learned there and my experiences and playing in big games and being around top players that are now excelling in the NFL, right? Just being able to take my experience and, bring it to Miami and, try to lead these younger guys that are here and, establish and, kind of mesh into the culture that's already been built at Miami and what Coach Cristobal has been building over the past couple of years. It's been a lot of fun.
Because Bruce, I mean, Mario would like to have, he's obviously trying to build that not only with the players he recruits, but when you can bring in a transfer from a program like UGA, like he wants to and hopefully everybody drives under the speed limit here. Those things that go on in Athens, but you're trying to build a certain culture and mentality. Carson Beck can help you do that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he spoke specifically about any receivers. I think he mentioned as a group. But I would have liked to have known what he really thinks of Trader, what he thinks of. Why am I today? I can't remember a damn thing.
Daniels.
Daniels, Lofton,
Malachi Tony, Ray
Tony,
Ray.
So I wish he would have mentioned the names, but Mario didn't seem to mention names either. So maybe that's part of this. They're not going to discuss people individually. They're just going to talk about the schemes and they're progressing. He doesn't seem to have any problems with the receivers. So I think we're going to be okay. I just do. I don't know whether they're going to let him call plays, because last year it seemed to me that Ward was checking off constantly. Yeah. But I think this guy's smart enough that they're going to let him do it. I just do. And he seemed pretty happy with the offensive line. That's for sure. He was like, "Oh my God, those guys massive." Right?
It was and it was weird because and whenever I talk about the offensive line, like on Locked On ACC, Kenton is always like, "Hey, they had 3 guys drafted in the top 100 on the O-line. It's great, but they didn't play well as a unit." I mean, so you're telling me they had 3 players good enough to get drafted in the first 4 rounds, whatever that was, but clearly when you're 102nd nationally in rushing and you're below average nationally in sacks allowed, you're not doing your job as a unit.
Yeah, so that means nothing to me either, going to the pros. Gino Toretto won the Heisman. What did he do in the NFL? No offense, Gino, but it's true. Casey sees this. But anyway, look, the ACC, those meetings are just to get everybody excited about it, and which is what happened. You were there. There was excitement for all the teams. Clemson's clearly the odds-on favorite to win, but we don't play them this year. So we have every chance to get to the ACC title game with no excuses. None. Right. I just don't think there's any. We got a lot of really good players, and the guys we brought in, you mentioned Torrey since the moment we got him. And I think he could be you talked to Wesley Besaint, he was like, this guy's all over the place, a big time hitter. So that's what they need. They need that. And if the D-line does its job, as I've told you, and then when we had Jesse on, we had Darren on, they told us how important the D-line is in front of them. I think those guys are going to have much better years because they're not going to be getting scraped by the linemen who get past our defensive guys all the time. I think we're going to be fine. I really do. Doesn't mean we're going to win every game.
Right. Well, hopefully we win at least 10, because that gives us an opportunity to get in that playoff. And speaking of the playoff, I would say, based on the coaches that we talked to and heard from in Charlotte, maybe the one that was like the most rah-rah, really standing up for the ACC was Rhett Lashley, Miami's former offensive coordinator, who's the head coach at SMU. And actually, in Lashley standing up for the conference, he had something very nice to say about the Miami Hurricanes. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On ACC, or on Locked On Canes. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes.
They ain't Kenton Gibbs.
All right, so the ACC got 2 teams into the playoffs, and SMU was able to get in because they had the 11-1 regular season, but they lost to Clemson in the ACC championship game. So Clemson got in as the conference champs. SMU got in. Miami at 10-2 was like one of those teams, right along with Alabama and South Carolina, who were close but didn't just quite get in, but some 10-2 teams did. So Rhett Lashley said this about Miami. He says, Miami should have been in last year with a 10-2 record. No question they were one of the top 12 teams in the country, he said. Back in December, he said, hey, if teams like Tennessee and Ohio State get in at 10-2, Miami should have been too. Now, Bruce, on the one hand, I appreciate Lashley saying that. But on the other hand, it's like, I guess I just didn't feel like Miami deserved to get in last year with the way that they blew that Syracuse game. So I wasn't personally, I still hoped they would sneak in, but I wasn't personally insulted by them not getting in, if that makes sense.
No, I think if I remember correctly, you were more upset that Alabama with like 3 losses got in, right?
Right. Well, they didn't get in, actually. Alabama didn't get in. They almost got in.
They didn't.
Yeah, I think they ranked them in front of us. I think.
Yes, that's what happened. They ranked us.
Yeah,
they ranked them 13, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I thought that was silly too. But the way we listen, people don't like they don't like Miami. They're not going to give us the benefit of any doubt over Alabama or Ohio State. They won't. So we got to take care of business on by ourselves. And it starts on the 31st of August when we beat Notre Dame. We're going to beat Notre Dame. You'll see. And that stadium is going to be rocking. And go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, from you were watching my shows, you were watching some other shows and reading some of the comments from coaches and players. Anything else that you might be curious about from ACC media days and what we heard from the Miami contingent out there?
Well, other than Clemson and Miami, who do they have up there? They have SMU still.
Yeah, Louisville
What
should be good this year.
Louisville could be good.
Yeah,
What about Florida State? Because I saw that
great
guy
question.
Piquel before on 3. He's not sold
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah,
And I'm not sold on their quarterback, despite him having a big mouth. I'm not sold on
Yeah.
him. Plus, when we play them, we have a week to get ready for them. We have a bye week
Right.
after the Florida game. Now, sometimes we don't do well with those buys, but this time around, with the focus and attention that I think Mario's got, they're going to be jacked to go up there and beat them again. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, listen, I think with Florida State, their 2-10 season last year was so baffling because even if you could say like, oh, obviously it was a flawed football team, they didn't have as much talent as we thought, and their offensive line was not good at all. Their quarterback situation was basically a disaster because DJ Uyunglele was a shell, and then he got hurt. But at the same time, like Florida State going 2-10, like it doesn't compute. Like they didn't have 2-10 level talent. Like at worst, maybe they had like 6-6 level talent, not 2-10 level talent. I think they're probably more talented this year than they were last year. But based on the conversations I have with Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles, he still doesn't fully believe in their offensive line. Like Castellanos is really talented, but he's built more like a running back than he is like a quarterback. So there's some questions there. So I think they'll be vastly improved, but I don't take them seriously as like a contender to win the conference. But I am going to take that game seriously, Bruce, because you go up to Tallahassee to play them. Like you got to take that game seriously. You can get beat if you don't.
Well, we could talk about Notre Dame and Florida all we want. Florida State game is the ACC opener for us. That's not a game we can't lose that game either. Could we lose to Florida or Notre Dame or even both of them and still get to the ACC title game? Yes, I don't want that to happen. But, if we're 4-0 going up there, I like our chances. Listen, I like our chances in every game, but I'm not going to do what I did last year and say 12-0. I'll say 13-0.
Yeah. Well, here's actually something low key I was thinking of. Now, Miami has this weird schedule where like Florida State is sandwiched between 2 bye weeks, which the pessimists will say this is terrible. What is this? But here could be the good thing, Bruce. You can let it all out on that Saturday in Tallahassee, and then you've got another full week to recover from that before you play against Louisville. Because there have been times where Miami has had like a Florida State hangover, whether you win or you lose that game, because you exert so much into a rivalry game. Like let's say Miami, wins a difficult game against Florida State, and if you played Louisville the following week, maybe you get beat, right? Now you have an extra week to rest after that. So I'm going to try to find the silver lining. Like on the one hand, bye week right before Florida State, right after, it's weird. And then you have a long stretch at the end of the season. Like you got 2 road games to end the year, which is not ideal, but at least having that bye week after Florida State, I think, can help you avoid a hangover after that.
Yeah, but that means there's only 1 game in a 4-week stretch. That's not really good either.
I know.
But I think Florida plays somebody like maybe LSU or somebody really tough the week before they come down here and play us. So that could help too. I looked at the schedules and I noticed that, let them get beaten up the week before and then come down here and play us. That would be nice. So look, anything else that you got from being up there? Is there any teams that you think could be a surprise?
I think we don't play them in the regular season this year, but I think Georgia Tech is slept on because I think they're really, it's a really tough team. Like Brent Key, obviously he can't recruit at the level that Miami can recruit, but he's got a really tough team, tough lines of scrimmage. They gave Georgia 8 overtimes last year. They beat Miami. I think that team gets slept on.
What about SMU? Didn't they just spend another ton of money on another quarterback?
Yeah, right. They spent almost as much money on Darian Mensah as Miami did on Carson Beck. Yet nobody talks about that. Like nobody talks about how they went out there and spent, allegedly $4 million per year on the quarterback of Tulane. Like nobody talks about that.
Right. Well, we just did. So we talked about it. And I don't know how good this guy is, but they're really Duke is like a middle of the pack team, I would think. Sure, they could beat us probably, but they're a middle of the pack team. And yeah, I don't think there's other than maybe SMU, Florida, SMU, Clemson, us, Louisville, maybe. I think the rest of them are just they're a level below. We just got to take care of business. That's all. I mean, fumbles happen, bad calls by the referees, or that could happen. It happens a lot, especially we play Notre Dame. So, but we got to go out there and take care of our business and do what we have to do and stay focused for 60 minutes, not 30, not 42. We really have to lay it to these guys. And I'd like to think that after 3 years, the mentality of Mario and this staff and how hard they're working, and you could tell by them not talking about, they don't want to talk about Notre Dame. That's not just Mario, all of them, because he must have said something to everybody in a team meeting. I don't want to talk about this game. I don't want you guys talking about this game. I don't want you bad-mouthing anybody. Let's focus on us. We haven't done a damn thing yet, which is true. And that's my motto. We haven't done a damn thing yet. That's what my motto is going into year 4. Let's show everybody that, we can win this conference. We could do well.
We'll close on that note. Excellent stuff as always from the Truth Teller. I am Alex Donno. He's Bruce Warner. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, I encourage it, because you don't have to look at my mug every single day. You can take us with you in the car, wherever you go. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.